Front Office Sports, and we're joined by former NFL tight end Kyle Rudolph. Kyle, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get into some football-related questions, we got to talk about the work you're doing right now with the nonprofit Good Sports. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Good Sports is an organization that I was introduced to this past year. I spoke on a panel that they had about athletes and nonprofits and brands in New York City, and really just admired the work that they're doing. Wanted to find out ways I could use my platform and my brand to help their mission. And their mission is simple. It's about providing access, equipment to kids all across the country who don't have it. And as I've worked with them, I've learned more and more. A statistic that jumped out to me immediately was 75% of parents ultimately feel like they have to make a decision because financially they can't support the cost of sports. And I think about, like, when I grew up, cost of sports wasn't really a thing. Like, yes, as I got older, you have like the travel teams and different things.
But parents made it work. Parents figured it out. Parents made it work. Parents sacrificed so I could have those opportunities. It's insane in today's world. And then when you can afford the cost to pay to play, like it is in most organizations now, well, what about your gear? First and foremost, do you have safe gear? Do you have the equipment that you need? And then beyond safety, it becomes like, do you have new gear? Or, are you getting donated gear and hand-me-downs, which as a kid, how can you have the confidence to go out there and play and be your best when you're like, I got these old cleats on, or old shoes, or an old glove. So being able to provide these kids with new gear, new equipment, so they can go out and be confident. And really, to me, it's all about these kids having the opportunity to learn all the lessons that sports taught me throughout my childhood. So I think sports play a huge part in developing, who you are as a person. Can you be a good teammate? Can you handle adversity? All these things that, these kids might not be professional athletes one day. That's completely fine. There's so many life lessons that they'll learn along the way that we're robbing them of if they can't afford to play.
Right. So you say you just learned about this a year ago. So when did you ever foresee sports being able to give you this platform? And now that you have it, how do you see it? Where do you see it taking you in the future?
For me, as a player, using my platform was always one of the most important things for me as an athlete, whether that was children in a hospital. I serve on another board of a nonprofit where we partner with the NFL to do food insecurity. So actually doing Taste of the NFL this year, and giving these kids, again, the opportunity. They don't know where their next meal might be. And now through Good Sports, it's providing kids the necessary equipment and access that they deserve. So for me, it's always been about using my platform to help the next generation, to help the kids. Awesome. Whether that be sick kids, underprivileged kids, kids with special needs. It's just always been about kids for me and my wife.
Kyle, let's talk about the NFL season, and specifically, will we see more games? There's been a lot of chatter maybe that the NFL might add an 18th game to this season. But that, of course, has to go through the NFL Players Association, which we're now hearing from executives of that committee that the idea of adding an 18th game is quote unquote cringeworthy, and no players really want it. What's your take on that? Do you think that the NFL should add an 18th game, or do you think players won't rally behind that?
I think honestly it comes down to financials. That was the big thing with the 17th game.
Right.
Did any of us want a 17th game? Absolutely not. But when you put the financials on the table and you look what the 17th game does for revenue, then ultimately the greater revenue is, the higher our salary cap is. Do players like playing on Wednesday? Do they like playing on Thursday? No, they hate it.
Right.
But
they also like to get paid.
Let's show them what it looks like from a revenue standpoint if we don't. Oh,
Yeah, I'll play on Thursday. That makes a difference. So I think the 18th game is only a matter of time. I think they've kind of had this vision of what football looks like. You think about adding an 18th game, well, when does that put the Super Bowl? Next weekend. What's next weekend? President's Day weekend. Nobody goes to work on Monday. So it's like a perfect weekend for the NFL to have the Super Bowl, to make Super Bowl Sunday. They'll remove a preseason game, which is hilarious to think about. Like, oh, let's trade a preseason game for a regular season game.
Much different. How do you go about it?
Preseason game's like a week off for me.
Yeah, right.
Like, now you're going to add a full week's work. And you're not swapping that out because we're not getting rid of that week in the preseason.
Right.
We're just adding a week on the end.
Right.
So I think ultimately it comes down to financials.
But you think it's going to happen?
I think it's going to happen.
Okay.
Okay. A little pivot to college football. I know you're a Notre Dame alum. Can you give your thoughts on this season?
Yeah, I thought it was a great season. Obviously came up short in the end, but seeing what Marcus has done, kind of bringing that relevance back to Notre Dame football. Yes, we had made college football playoffs in the past. Our last college football national championship game, 2013-2012 season, just got smoked by Alabama. It was never really competitive. So to make it to the first ever 12-team college football national championship game, it's a testament to Marcus and to the program and where the program is. And for me personally, I think it'll be a springboard into what's to come.
Yeah, that's an expansion you like. The 12 team. Yeah.
Yeah, and for us, if there wasn't a 12-team playoff, I don't think we get in if it's just 4. Having lost that we did, losing to Northern Illinois at 11-1, I don't think we get in. You look at the 2 previous Notre Dame teams that made the college football playoff, you have to be 12-0. You had to be undefeated because it's a conference championship to go play in.
Yeah.
So 12-team playoff, definitely, I think it's great for college football. I think there's some bugs to fix. There's a couple things that I don't really love about
the
it.
rankings, I think, need a little bit of work.
Yeah, the seeding.
Automatic buys. Clearly, the automatic buys were not great for teams that got them.
But at least they're trying. At least they're working on it.
12 was better than 4. It was way better than watching a bunch of meaningless bowl games throughout the course of December and January.
And then the debate of should this team have been in the national championship game or not. Now it's,
no debate.
Knock them out. On the topic of college sports, you've been doing Big Ten telecasts for Peacock. Are you loving doing, play-by-play and color for the college game? Do you want to do the NFL someday, or do you sort of love the college atmosphere?
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, there's only certain guys, one of my former teammates, Tom Brady, that just jumps into like the number 1 booth in the NFL. So as a tight end, that was just okay for most of my career. You got to cut your teeth somewhere. You got to get in. You got to get the reps. And I was very fortunate that Peacock and NBC gave me the opportunity to do that in the college game. Where broadcasting will take me, I have no idea.
You're just on for the ride.
I'm just along for the ride. When I have opportunities to call games, I love doing it. I love providing my perspective to fans. I love, translating what I see on the field in real time. But who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, you mentioned as a tight end compared to, the number 1 quarterback, Tom Brady. So on that topic, Brock Bowers is nominated for AP Offensive Rookie of the Year. How hard is it as a tight end to compete with quarterbacks for those awards?
Well, it should be called the AP Offensive Quarterback of the Year.
Yeah.
And then everybody else.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the MVP. Like the MVP is the best quarterback.
Right.
Not the best player. Haven't had anybody but a quarterback since Adrian Peterson in 2012, when I was teammates with Adrian. So these awards have just become quarterback awards.
Yeah.
Like what Brock Bowers has, look, Jaden had a phenomenal year. And you give him credit. But
Brock Bowers had over 100 receptions as a tight end.
Brock Bowers had a phenomenal year for a wide receiver, a rookie wide receiver.
Yeah.
And as a rookie wide receiver, he probably would be worthy of Offensive Rookie of the Year. And yet it will go to a quarterback. And it's like they weren't even talking about Brock. It was like Jaden and Bo Nix, and they're going back and forth. It's like they're not even mentioning the greatest probably rookie season of all time in Brock Bowers.
Kyle, we'll get you out of here on this. Obviously, going to be a great game this weekend. All eyes going to be obviously on Mahomes, but Travis Kelce as well. Is Travis Kelce the greatest tight end ever?
Yeah, and I think he's just continuing to, cement his legacy as the greatest tight end ever. When you're talking about tight ends breaking
records with Brock Bowers. Like Travis Kelce is breaking records. They're not tight end records. They're records held by Jerry Rice, the greatest receiver ever. So, he's kind of elevating his game to a completely different stratosphere.
Yeah, indeed. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. All the best of luck for the next year and above. And we got a lot more interviews coming to you with coaches, players, and more from Radio Row with Front Office Sports.